Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with Eastman and Layard's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. And this is from the 2009 Free Comic Book Day. This was to commemorate the 25th anniversary of this issue. Now, I feel kind of old because I prefer this copy, and that's why we're going to go over this book. But when we went over the 4-pack, the Walmart exclusive, it came with this version, which I love this variant by Kevin Eastman. And this commemorates the 35th anniversary. So it's like 10 years later, I have two different copies, and that makes me feel a little old. But the reason that I'm not going to go over this one is I don't know if it was an IDW choice or a Nickelodeon choice, but there are so many edits in this one compared to this, where this is closer to the original print. Like in this one, they took out a lot of the blood and certain words. So again, I don't know if that was a Nickelodeon choice or an IDW choice. But nonetheless, I'm glad to have these two different copies because I like this variant, but I don't like the edits. That really frustrates me. So we're going to jump onto this one, which, as I just said, this is closer to the original print. So let's go ahead and dive into this wonderful comic book. And we'll skip past the intro. And because this is more paper, I have to hold the pages down because, you know, such is life. And I like the way the creative team of Eastman and Layard opened this book. This is not something you'd see like in the Ninja Turtles cartoon or the Archie comics. So it says, "My name is Leonardo. We made a wrong turn somewhere. Now we're caught. Our backs to the wall in this trash-strewn alley. Barring the way out are 15 members of the Purple Dragons, the toughest street gang on the east side. The only way they'll let us out is if we're dead." And then you see the brothers. I hold my katana in a relaxed, ready position. To my left, Donatello and Michelangelo follow suit with staff and nunchuck. Raphael guards my right side. I sense his body quivering into savage slashing. Release, waiting for it to be triggered. And they're saying you're dead freaks, you know, because they said no one passes on our turf, especially wearing stupid turtle costumes. And then we're treated to this gorgeous splash page, and it goes, "He's wrong. We're not wearing costumes." So imagine seeing this back in 1984. Such gorgeous, gorgeous work there. Stay. I always loved that splash page, and I always enjoyed seeing it as a kid whenever they used it to promote the toys or any type of turtle event. Always a welcome sight. So I like how Eastman and Layard here talk about how the toughs, I think is how they call them, basically just go straight into small arms and don't even try to fight. And then Leo, this is kind of his third person. He's saying, "Raphael loves this stuff." There comes a flash as his sighs come out. And I just love that angle of him flying in. The three toughs don't even see that. Too bad. So like all this blood splatter and stuff like this in the other copy that I have, this is all taken out. That's why I wanted to go over this book, because it's more of its entirety. And I just love the ferocity you see on Raphael's face as he's ready to just take these street thugs down. So here, this is something you would not even see in a turtle comic either. It goes, "Who are these guys? Don't know, some kind of freaks. But even freaks can bleed. Cut them." Again, Leonardo. "Yes, we can bleed. And so can you." And I like the omittance of any other thing other than the switchblades and the blood splatter. Explains just what happened. And he's saying that this was their first major skirmish. So at this point we see that these are young, somewhat inexperienced turtles coming up on their way. And again, just like with the other copy, you would not see this blood on Leonardo's katana. So that's intense. And then this, I love when the panels and the art drive the narrative. So check this out. It says, "We do not like to run from those who would be our allies, but we must. They would not understand us. The storm drain beckons. We are never far from a means of escape, and in the original it says, or concealment. For we are trained in the ways of ninjutsu. We strike hard and fade away into the night. And I love that, just this empty panel showing like no one was ever there. That's great. That's awesome storytelling. And even though I know back in the day a lot of indie creators did black and white because it's cheaper to print, but 35 years later, it adds to the grittiness of this comic. So here's where we're first introduced to Splinter. And they're talking about how this was their first successful night. And Splinter congratulates them. And he says, I've been waiting for this many, many years. It's time for you to be told of the mission for which I've trained you these past 13 years. You will learn of my life and how I came to be. And so we see here how Splinter was a rat, and he used to mimic Hamato Yoshi's movements in Japan. So this follows the movie. For those of you that are movie buffs, I like that the movie kept this. As with the cartoon, it was Yoshi that became a rat. So, and then we also learn here that Yoshi was part of the Foot Clan, which were assassins, as we know. And it says, and then there was Oroku Nagi. So the name's a little thrown off. We're kind of like, wait a minute. I'm just talking about for those of us that grew up with the cartoon. So like when I first read this was all very eye-opening to me. So I want to kind of share my experience in that. And they're talking about how both Nagi and Yoshi loved a woman named Tang. But Tang loved Yoshi. So this very much follows the movie patterns. And then this is where the other copy gets edited a lot. Nagi was insanely jealous. One fateful night, he went to Tang's home and demanded that she love him. Shin refused, saying that she only wanted Yoshi. In a jealous rage, Nagi began to beat her. At the moment, Yoshi, coming to visit his lover, entered the room and saw Nagi poised to strike. And see this rage with what he's done to Yoshi's love. And he beats Nagi to death. So in this, the custom, I guess, of the Foot Clan was either, kill himself and look for honor in the next life, or be exiled. So they chose exile and moved to America. And so at Nagi's funeral, we learn of Saki. And this is where we're introduced to Oroku Saki. And how, because of his hatred for Yoshi, moves up the ranks of the Foot Clan. You have proven yourself, though you are only 18, you are a most cunning assassin. And so you must go to New York and open a branch of the Foot. And so Splinter here says, under his leadership, the Foot was soon involved in many criminal activities. Drug smuggling, arms running, and their specialty, assassination. Saki, now called the Shredder, was successful, but not satisfied, and his dark heart burned hatred for Hamato Yoshi and his wife, Tang Shin. And so this is where the Shredder murders Yoshi. And again, this blood here is removed from the other copy. So if you guys have that 35th anniversary, just be aware there are a lot of edits on that book. And then this is where we segue into the Turtles. He says, one day while I was searching a trash can for my next meal, I witnessed an accident. An old blind man crossing the street was almost run down by a large truck. At the last moment, a young man leaped at the blind man and knocked him out of the truck's way. As the truck screeched to a jarring stop, a metal canister bounced out of the back and struck the young man near his eyes. So years later, we would learn this is how Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird wanted to tie Matt Murdock into the Turtle universe. And that's how Daredevil got blinded. So I love how they just nonchalantly put that in the book. So he goes through how he taught the turtles, or how he gathered the turtles up in an old coffee can, just like the movie, and how they began to double in size and mimic Splinter and gave him his name. And so he started to train them in jiu-jitsu. And, he found an old Renaissance book, and we got Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Raphael. And I just love the movements that the team gave to him here. Just very much dynamic and strikes at you. Now, for those of us that grew up with the Turtles, this is not something we're used to seeing. Now I am old, and there's a test that I would have you perform before I leave this life. Now, I must ask you to do that which no being should ask of another. I ask you to avenge the cruel death of my master, Hamato Yoshi, and his wife, Tang. I ask you to challenge and kill the murderer Oroku Saki, the Shredder. And so then we get this gorgeous panel of Raphael. And I may be biased because Raph's always been my number one turtle out of all of them. And right here, let me kind of pause and say Eastman, I believe it was I can't remember if it was the Toys That Made Us or who, I think it might have been Comic Tropes. It might have been one of those two. My brain gets scattered. But they're talking about how Eastman was very much inspired by Frank Miller and wanted to be the next Frank Miller, hence why he said he loved Daredevil. And so just think about looking at this panel, the grittiness, the noirish of it, the dark, heavy inks. You would see Daredevil doing something like this in Hell's Kitchen, so you could see where they were coming from in this. And then, of course, the way it's written. I am Raphael, Ninja Turtle, and my master Splinter chose me for this task, to deliver a message of challenge to the Shredder. And I love how Raph methodically goes through Shredder's compound, because you find out he's a mob boss. He's not just like a bumbling fool doing errands for Krang. And just the ferocity of Raphael, just gutting these guys and talk about how I'm still standing, this goon is not. And so Raph sends the challenge in a really dramatic way. And you see that Oroku is trying to do a protections, what is that called? A protection racket, I think is what it's called. And the turtles kind of poke a hole in that. And again, I like how they just drew the intensity of the eyes. There will be a duel, and there will be death. Theirs. Love it. And so the turtles wait for Shredder. And they first asked, they said, are you afraid of us? And what Shredder's doing is from a distance, he's sizing up the turtles. Sorry guys, I'm trying to use my mouse here because the pages just do not want to stay down. If y'all know of any better way to keep comics put in place when you're trying to do a review, let me know, because that's very frustrating, and it kind of kills the momentum. But anyway, I like how Shredder just jumps in, and he just says, you face your doom. And the way he's crouched very much reminds me of the way that the old action figure was, because the toy maker said that he bent Shredder over to fit in the bubble pack. But that very much looks like the action figure there, and I just love that dynamic angle. And the way, even though this is black and white, come face your doom. And the way these just kind of word together like that. And he says, foot, join me. And so, again, gorgeous, gorgeous splash page of this battle between human foot soldiers. Because this is a gang, this isn't robots. And the turtles, and they are just going to town on one another. And just look at the intricacy of this. You don't get stuff like this very much anymore. You could tell that this was written with love for what they did and not some corporate mandatedness. They did this because they loved what they did. Oh, it shows. It shows so much. And like how Leonardo, more blood that's omitted from the original comic, says, your ninja have fallen, Shredder. So I see. They were good men, my best. I see, too, that they have left their marks. So look at the turtles. You don't see battle damage like that very much a kind of an indie book, sure. But, you know, like in Ninja Turtle comics throughout the early 90s, because they tried to make it more kid-friendly. But man, I love that, showing that the Turtles went through the grinder just to get at Shredder. And so they get their butts kicked bad one-on-one. And so the Turtles group up on him. And they're still having a hard time taking down Oroku because he is a master. Because he even says, you know, you took out my ninja, but that's student against student. Now come, face the master. And what I like is how Donatello tries to take him out. He gets hit. And Shredder says, you are overly confident fool, Leonardo. Perhaps he is Shredder. But perhaps not. Shum impels him. Whew. And so Shredder says, I'm beaten. Slay me. And they say, unlike you, Orokosaki, we have honor. I will give you one more chance to redeem your honor. Take this katana and commit seppuku. He says, never. And so something happens right here that is really intense on how the Shredder, quote-unquote, ends the book. I don't want to give it away. I wanted to instead show the ending panel because that is just gorgeous. You see this dirty, nasty, 80s-esque New York. And I like how it ends the way it began. We are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We strike hard and fade away into the night. And that's just some gorgeous artwork. Battle damaged, hardened, trained in the way of assassination of ninja. Unlike, and as you can see, none of the Turtles have any of that, whoa, dude, bodacious pizza, man. They kind of threw that in there as humor for the cartoon, which I appreciate. It's nostalgic to me, and I can love that too, but now that I'm older, I appreciate this from a storytelling aspect, the seriousness of it. They took Turtles and made them ninja. And if you watch the documentary, The Toys Who Made Us, they even said that they drew the first Ninja Turtle to make one another laugh. And then it got serious. And I've been trying to go back and read some of these older ones, and man, this is some great stuff. So if you can, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and see if you can find a reprint or a copy of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 and all the issues thereafter leading up to when they actually kind of blew up on the scene in the 90s. But yeah, this book, you're not going to get into that. Go Ninja, go Ninja, go. So just a heads up to those who really are more hardcore for the original cartoon, which it holds, like I said, it holds a special place in my heart. But I love this noir seriousness. It just hits you just right. Like reading, as Eastman said, he wanted to mimic Frank Miller. This is just like reading a Frank Miller comic book. Kind of close your eyes and think of his run on Daredevil in Sin City, and you got yourself a great book. And if you guys have enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know and helps us grow. And we really, really would appreciate that. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little hero and a half shell bell next to subscribe. That way, as we continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and we love hearing your feedback and having a dialogue with y'all down in the comments below. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with us and checking out this amazing comic book. I hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.